The sun rose slowly over the hills of New Eden, casting long shadows across John Mason's small farm. He stood on the porch, a cup of steaming coffee in his weathered hands, watching his 12-year-old twins playing in the distance. The morning. Air was cool and clean, so different from the recycled oxygen of military vessels he had breathed for most of his life. "Lily. Sam. Breakfast in 10 minutes," he called out, his voice carrying easily across the open field. The children waved back, their faces bright with smiles. They were happy here, safe. That was all that mattered to John now. Inside the modest home, John set out plates of food. Simple tasks like cooking breakfast still felt strange to him. His hands, which had once disassembled plasma rifles blindfolded, now carefully flipped pancakes and poured juice. 3 years ago, he wouldn't have believed this life possible. But after Kate died, everything changed. The legendary soldier known as Baba Yaga disappeared, and John Mason, devoted father, took his place. The twins burst through the door, breathless and laughing. "Dad!" "We found something weird in the south field," Sam said, his blue eyes wide with excitement. Lily nodded eagerly. "It looks like one of those hegemony probe things Mr. Peterson talked about in science class." John felt a familiar tension creep into his shoulders, but kept his face neutral. "Eat first, then we'll take a look." As they ate, John listened to their chatter about school and friends. Lily was smart like her mother, always asking questions that cut straight to the heart of things. Sam was more like John, observant, cautious, but fiercely protective of his sister despite being younger by 8 minutes. "Can we go to Ben's house after school today?" Lily asked. His father got a new shipment of hegemony tech for the colony's communication center. "Ben's father works for the aliens?" John kept his tone casual, though his mind was already cataloging information. "He's a liaison," Sam explained, mouthful of pancake. "Ben says the hegemony isn't so bad, they just have a lot of rules." John nodded slowly. "Rules keep people safe sometimes." He didn't add that rules could also be chains, or that the galactic hegemony viewed humans as barely civilized primates who needed to be contained. After breakfast, John walked with the children to the small colony school. New Eden was home to about 5,000 people, a mixture of farmers, scientists, and others seeking life away from Earth's crowded cities. It existed on the very edge of human territory, technically under hegemony protection and control. "Mr. Mason?" John turned to see Eric Palmer, the colony governor, hurrying toward him. Eric was one of the few people who knew anything about John's past, though even he didn't know everything. "Morning, Eric. Can we talk?" Eric's usual easy smile was missing. "Privately?" John nodded to the twins. "Go on ahead. I'll see you after school." Once the children were out of earshot, Eric lowered his voice. "The hegemony sending an inspection team, high-level officials, not just the usual patrols." John's face revealed nothing, but inside, alarms were ringing. "Why?" "They say it's routine, but our friend Administrator Krestar let slip that they're concerned about unauthorized technological development. Someone's been watching us." "When do they arrive?" 3 days. I need you to check our perimeter security. If they find some of our more innovative projects, it could be bad for all of us." John nodded. "I'll head out to the boundary stations today." As John walked away, he felt the weight of his hidden past pressing down on him. The colony's security system was largely his design, though few knew it. Based on military tech that officially didn't exist, it was definitely not approved by the hegemony. The school day was ending when John returned home. He had spent hours checking the colony's hidden defenses, making sure all traces of advanced human technology were properly masked. His old instincts were sharp as ever, despite years of disuse. The sound of children's laughter drew his attention to the playground beside the school. Lily and Sam were playing with a small group that included a child who wasn't human. The young Silarian had the characteristic silver skin and four-fingered hands of its species, a mid-ranking member race of the hegemony. John watched as the alien child showed the human children something on a small device. The twins looked fascinated, John felt uneasy, but reminded himself that children were just children, regardless of species. Still, he made a mental note to ask about it later. That evening, as John tucked the twins into bed, Lily asked, "Dad, why does the hegemony think humans are dangerous?" John paused, considering his words carefully. "What makes you ask that?" "Tyrval showed us some hegemony educational stuff today. It said humans are unpredictable and potentially destabilizing to galactic harmony." "That's what they call us?" Sam asked sleepily. "Destabilizing?" John sat on the edge of Lily's bed. "Different cultures see things differently. The hegemony has existed for thousands of years with very little change. We humans tend to change things quickly. That makes them nervous. But we're not dangerous, right?" Lily's eyes were serious. John thought of his past, of the things he had done, of why some had called him Baba Yaga. Not after the fairy tale witch, but because he was the one you sent to kill the witch. The boogeyman's boogeyman. "Most of us just want to live in peace," he said finally. "Get some sleep now. Tomorrow's another day." Later that night, John sat on his porch staring at the stars. His secure comm unit buzzed, Eric, asking him to check a possible sensor anomaly at the far outpost, a full day's journey away. Normally, John would have questioned leaving the twins alone overnight, but with 3 days until the hegemony's arrival, they couldn't risk any surprises. He kissed his sleeping children goodbye, left a note explaining he had emergency work, and promised to be back by dinner tomorrow. The colony was safe. The children had neighbors to check on them. It would be fine. As John's vehicle disappeared into the night, he didn't notice the sleek hegemony scout ship entering atmosphere on the far side of the colony, well ahead of the scheduled inspection. He didn't know that Admiral Voxnar had decided to conduct a surprise preliminary assessment after receiving reports of unusual activity. He didn't know that his children's friendship with Tyrval had already been flagged in a hegemony security report because the alien child had accidentally shared restricted information. And he couldn't know that by this time tomorrow, the name Baba Yaga would begin its terrifying journey through the stars once more. The hegemony ship landed without ceremony in the early hours of the morning. Admiral Voxnar stepped onto New Eden soil with obvious distaste, his tall, angular frame towering over the colony officials who had been hastily summoned to meet him. His scale shimmered blue-black in the dawn light, and his 4 eyes scanned the surroundings with cold efficiency. "This inspection was scheduled for 3 days from now," Eric Palmer said, trying to keep his voice steady. "Schedules change," Voxnar replied. "The hegemony has reason to believe this colony has exceeded its technological permissions." Eric swallowed hard. "We follow all regulations, Admiral." "We shall see." The Admiral's mouth twitched in what might have been a smile. "My team will begin immediately." By mid-morning, the colony was in chaos. Hegemony soldiers moved from building to building, scanning equipment, confiscating devices, and questioning residents. Children were kept home from school as parents watched nervously from behind closed doors. In the Mason home, Lily and Sam sat at the kitchen table, working on school assignments sent through their tablets. The house felt empty without their father. "Do you think Dad knew they were coming?" Sam asked, glancing out the window at a pair of hegemony soldiers walking down the street. Lily shook her head. "He wouldn't have left if he knew." A sharp knock on the door made them both jump. Before they could decide whether to answer, the door slid open. 3 hegemony soldiers entered, led by a slender officer whose scales had a greenish tint. "This is the Mason residence?" the officer asked, consulting a small device. Lily stood up, trying to look brave. "Yes, our father isn't home. He's working at the boundary station." The officer's 4 eyes blinked in sequence. "You are the offspring who associate with Citizen Tyrval?" "We're friends with Tyrval," Sam said, moving closer to his sister. "Is something wrong?" The officer made a quick gesture and the soldiers moved forward. "You will come with us for questioning. Information suggests you have been exposed to restricted hegemony data." "We haven't done anything wrong," Lily protested. "We need to wait for our father." "Your father is not relevant to this inquiry," the officer said. "Come now, or we will be forced to compel you." Sam reached for his emergency communicator. a small device their father had given them with strict instructions to use only in true danger. The nearest soldier snatched it from his hand and crushed it under a heavy boot. "No communications," the soldier growled. "Admiral's orders." The twins were marched outside to awaiting transport. Neighbors watched from behind curtains, but no one interfered. The hegemony's authority was absolute, especially on frontier colonies like New Eden. Lily managed to press the panic button on her own communicator, hidden in her pocket, before it too was discovered and destroyed. She hoped the signal had time to send. Miles away, at the boundary station, John Mason was finishing his inspection of the perimeter sensors when his secure comm unit vibrated against his chest. The small screen displayed a single message: "Emergency, Lily." His blood turned to ice. John tried to contact the colony, but all communications channels were mysteriously jammed. He jumped into his vehicle and pushed it to maximum speed, racing back toward town with a sense of dread growing in his chest. In the hegemony ship, Lily and Sam sat in a sterile interrogation room. The walls were metallic and cold, the lighting harsh. Admiral Voxnar himself had joined the questioning, his interest piqued by what his intelligence officer had reported. "The device that Citizen Tyrval showed you," Voxnar said, his voice surprisingly soft. "Describe it again." "It was just a little screen with moving pictures," Sam said, his voice trembling slightly. "Tyrval called it a cultural exchange device." Voxnar leaned forward. "And it showed you hegemony defense protocols?" "We didn't know they were secret," Lily insisted. "They looked like games to us." The Admiral made a dismissive sound. "Human children attempting deception. Pathetic." He turned to a console and adjusted several settings. "We have more efficient methods of extracting information." A low hum filled the room as two mechanical arms descended from the ceiling, each tipped with a small probe. "These will scan your neural patterns," Voxnar explained. "It may cause discomfort, but resistance will only increase the pain." "You can't do this," Lily said, trying to sound brave like her father would. "We're citizens of New Eden. We have rights under the colonial charter." Voxnar's laugh was like stones grinding together. "The charter grants the hegemony full authority to protect its security interests by any means necessary. Begin the scan." The probes touched the children's foreheads. Sam screamed immediately. Lily bit her lip until it bled, determined not to show weakness. "Increase power," Voxnar ordered, watching the readings on his console. "Human neural pathways are notoriously resistant." The technician hesitated. "Admiral, these settings are calibrated for adult Zilarians. For human children—" "Increase power," Voxnar repeated coldly. "I want that information." The twin screams echoed through the ship. In the colony below, those who heard the distant sounds quickly shut their windows and turned up their music, fear keeping them from acknowledging what they knew in their hearts was happening. When John Mason reached the colony's outskirts, he knew something was terribly wrong. Hegemony soldiers patrolled the streets, and a heavy ship loomed over the settlement center. He abandoned his vehicle and moved on foot, staying to shadows and back alleys, skills from his past life returning without conscious thought. He reached his house to find it empty, the door left open, schoolwork still spread across the table. Cold fury began to build inside him as he noted the signs of struggle. The crushed communicator on the floor. A soft tap at the back door made him whirl, a kitchen knife already in his hand. Eric Palmer stood there, his face gray with shock and fear. "John," Eric whispered. "I'm so sorry. They took the children for questioning. Something about restricted information from that alien friend of theirs." "Where?" John's voice was barely human. "The ship." "But John, you can't just—" "Who's in charge?" "Admiral Voxnar himself." "John, please, we need to be careful. The whole colony could suffer if—" The rest of Eric's words died in his throat as he saw the change come over his friend's face. Gone was the quiet farmer, the devoted father. In his place stood someone, something, else entirely. Eric had heard rumors about John's past, about why some had called him Baba Yaga, but he had never truly believed them. Until now. Get everyone away from the ship, John said, his voice deadly calm. As far away as possible. Inside the hegemony vessel, alarms began to sound. The ship's medical officer burst into the interrogation room, her scales pale with distress. Admiral, the human children, their life signs are failing. Our equipment is... Voxnar waved a dismissive hand. Increase life support. Continue the scan. Sir, they're dying. The Admiral paused, then sighed. Very well, terminate the procedure. But it was too late. The ship's medical systems had not been programmed for human physiology. The neural probes, designed to scan hegemony species safely, had caused catastrophic damage to the twins' developing brains. By the time the probes retracted, Lily and Sam Mason were already gone. The news came to John in fragments, delivered by Eric Palmer in a voice that shook with fear and grief. The children were dead. The hegemony claimed it was an unfortunate accident. The colony was under lockdown. No one could leave or enter. Communications were restricted. John stood perfectly still as he listened. The pain inside him was too vast to feel all at once. It spread through him like ice, freezing everything it touched. They're calling it a regrettable incident, Eric said, his eyes red from crying. Neural scan equipment not calibrated for human physiology. Technical failure. John said nothing. Voxnar has issued a statement expressing official regret, but also warning that the colony's technological violations justified the interrogation. He's demanding full compliance from all residents. Still, John remained silent, his eyes fixed on something distant that only he could see. John, please say something, Eric begged. I know you're in pain, but where are my children now? John's voice was flat, empty of emotion. The hegemony is holding their... Eric couldn't bring himself to say the word, bodies. They're conducting an examination to improve their procedures for future human interactions. Something flickered in John's eyes. They took my children, they killed them, and now they're treating them like lab specimens. Eric backed away slightly, sensing the danger radiating from his friend. John, I know what you're thinking, but you can't. There are over 100 hegemony soldiers here now. The entire colony would suffer if you... I need to get some things from my house, John interrupted, already walking away. Make sure everyone stays inside tonight. Eric called after. Him, what are you planning to do? John didn't answer. Inside his home, John moved to the cellar. Behind a false wall that would defeat even hegemony scanners, he accessed a hidden room. The space was small but neatly organized. Weapons lined one wall. Body armor hung from a rack. Communication devices, more advanced than anything the colony officially possessed, sat on a metal shelf. John changed clothes methodically, his movements precise and economical. The farmer disappeared, replaced by someone else entirely. As he strapped a combat knife to his thigh, memories flashed through his mind. Lily's laugh, Sam's serious face when he concentrated, their small hands in his as they walked to school. Push the memories away. They would return later, he knew, but now they would only slow him down. Now he needed to be Baba Yaga. Night fell over New Eden. The hegemony had established a perimeter around their ship and key colony buildings. Soldiers patrolled in pairs, their weapons charged and ready. Admiral Voxnar had sensed the colony's anger over the children's deaths and wasn't taking chances. The first pair of soldiers disappeared near the colony's western edge. Their communication devices went silent simultaneously. No alarm was raised. A second pair, checking a storage facility, vanished 5 minutes later. By the time anyone noticed something was wrong, 6 hegemony soldiers were already missing. Inside the hegemony command post, established in the colony's administrative building, a junior officer approached Admiral Voxnar nervously. Sir, we've lost contact with several patrol units. Voxnar looked up from his console, irritated. Equipment malfunction. This primitive colony has interference issues. Sir, I've tried emergency channels, nothing. And the missing units were in different sectors. The Admiral's scales darkened slightly, a sign of concern. Send search teams, full combat readiness. The officer hesitated. Sir, there's something else. We found this at the last known location of Patrol 4. He held out a small metal disc. Voxnar took it, examining the strange symbol etched into its surface. "What is this?" "Unknown, sir. But the same symbol was found at the other locations as well." The Admiral's eyes narrowed. "Increase security at all posts. I want the ship's shields at maximum." Outside, moving like a shadow through the colony he knew so well, John continued his work. He wasn't just killing soldiers. He was sending a message. Each hegemony patrol he eliminated received the same treatment. Weapons disabled, communication devices destroyed, and a small metal token left behind. His calling card from the old days, the mark of Baba Yaga. The hegemony's response was predictable. They pulled back, consolidated forces, increased security around key positions. John had counted on this. It gave him room to move, to access what he needed. In a maintenance tunnel beneath the colony's power plant, John activated a hidden terminal. The screen glowed softly as he entered a series of codes. Across New Eden, dormant systems came online, security measures he had quietly installed over the years just in case. He pulled up the schematics of the hegemony ship. Every vessel had weaknesses. You just needed to know where to look. At the colony's medical center, a young hegemony officer named Lyric stood guard over the room containing the Mason children's remains. She was troubled by what had happened. The interrogation procedures used on the human children had been excessive, unnecessary. She had joined the hegemony forces believing in their mission to maintain galactic order, not to torture innocent youngsters. A slight noise in the corridor caught her attention. She raised her weapon, moving cautiously toward the sound. "Identify yourself," she called out. The lights went out. Lyric switched to thermal vision but saw nothing. Then something cold pressed against her neck. "Don't move," a human voice whispered. "I don't want to die," she said, her voice remarkably steady. "I'm not here for you, I'm here for my children." Lyric understood immediately. "You're their father." Yes. She made a decision then that would change her life forever. The security code for the room is 7392. The examination is complete. They were treated with respect afterward. The pressure on her neck eased slightly. "Why are you helping me?" "Because what happened to them was wrong," she replied simply. "What will you do now?" "Take them home. Then hunt down everyone responsible." Lyric swallowed hard. "You should know that Admiral Voxnar has requested reinforcements. A battle cruiser is on its way." "How long?" 2 days. The presence behind her seemed to consider this. "When they come, tell them who took your children. Tell them Baba Yaga has returned." Then he was gone, melting into the shadows. Lyric stood frozen for several moments before triggering the alarm. By the time security forces arrived, the room was empty. The children's bodies were gone. By dawn, the colony was in an uproar. 14 hegemony soldiers were dead or missing. The Mason children's remains had been taken. And most troubling to Admiral Voxnar, the colony's long-range communication array had been destroyed. Not by explosives, but by a precise computer virus that had corrupted its systems beyond repair. No one could call for help. No one could warn the approaching battlecruiser. In his private quarters, Voxnar reviewed security footage, searching for any glimpse of their attacker. On one grainy image, he froze the frame. A human figure, face obscured but purpose clear. "Just one man," he muttered to himself. One primitive human. His second in command, who had served longer on human worlds, spoke quietly. "Admiral, the humans have legends about a warrior they call Baba Yaga." "Superstitious nonsense," Voxnar snapped. "Perhaps, sir, but the colonists are whispering that name now, and our soldiers are growing concerned." Voxnar's scales darkened with anger. "I will not be intimidated by primitive myths. When our reinforcements arrive, we will crush this insurgent and make an example of this colony." Little did he know that deep in the forest beyond the colony's edge, John Mason was burying his children under the stars, his tears falling silently as he made them a solemn promise. The hegemony would remember their names, and the galaxy would never forget his. 2 days passed with no sign of John Mason. The hegemony forces fortified their positions, expecting an attack that never came. Admiral Voxnar grew increasingly irritable as the hours ticked by. The colonists remained in their homes, doors locked, lights dimmed. The streets of New Eden were empty except for hegemony patrols now moving in groups of 4 instead of pairs. Perhaps he's fled, one of Voxnar's officers suggested during a tense briefing. Or perhaps the stories of his abilities were exaggerated. Voxnar's scales rippled with annoyance. He hasn't fled, he's waiting. For what, Admiral? For us to make a mistake. The hegemony battlecruiser Dominant arrived exactly on schedule, a massive vessel that darkened the sky as it descended into orbit around New Eden. Commander Drezkar, its captain, was a decorated veteran of the border conflicts with the Arcturus Collective. He had never lost a battle and had little respect for human capabilities. Admiral Voxnar, he said, his image flickering on the command post screen. I understand you're having trouble with the local wildlife. Voxnar's scales flushed dark with embarrassment. The situation is more complex than reported, Commander. Our communications have been compromised. I recommend you maintain high orbit and accept a shuttle party from our ground forces before— Nonsense, Drezkar interrupted. My sensors detect no threats. I'll dispatch ground reinforcements immediately and join you shortly to assess the situation. The connection ended before Voxnar could protest further. From his hidden position in the hills overlooking the colony, John watched through high-powered optics as 3 hegemony shuttles descended from the battlecruiser. Each would carry 20 soldiers, fresh troops who knew nothing about what they were facing. John checked his equipment one final time. The past 2 days had not been spent in hiding but in preparation. He had raided his emergency caches around the colony perimeter, gathering weapons and technology that officially didn't exist in human space. He activated a small device attached to his wrist. On its screen, a countdown began. The first shuttle landed at the colony's main landing pad. The second touched down near the hegemony ship. The third hovered near the command post. Soldiers began to disembark in perfect formation, their weapons ready but their posture relaxed. They expected a simple policing action, not a war. John pressed a button on his wrist device. Across New Eden, carefully placed electromagnetic pulse charges activated simultaneously. The directed bursts were precisely calibrated to affect only hegemony technology, which operated on different frequencies than human equipment. The effect was immediate and devastating. The hovering shuttle's engines failed, sending it crashing into the command post. The 2 grounded shuttles went dark, their doors frozen half open, trapping soldiers inside. Hegemony weapons and communication devices sparked and died. In the confusion that followed, John made his move. He slipped into the colony like a ghost, using routes and passages that didn't appear on any official map. His first target was the damaged command post. Inside, Admiral Voxnar was shouting orders that no one could follow. Backup systems were failing faster than they could be activated. Emergency lighting cast eerie shadows across the room. Get those shuttles operational. Restore communications with the Dominant, Voxnar demanded, his usual composure shattered. Admiral, a young officer said, her voice trembling. All shuttle crews report their systems are completely fried. And we can't reach the ship. That's impossible, Voxnar hissed. Our technology is protected against primitive human attacks. A new voice spoke from the shadows. You still don't understand what you're dealing with. Every hegemony soldier in the room turned, weapons raised, only to find their trigger mechanisms unresponsive. John stepped forward, his face visible to Voxnar for the first time. The Admiral was surprised by how ordinary the human looked. There was no rage in his expression, only a terrible cold purpose. You, Voxnar said, the father. My name is John Mason. My children were Lily and Sam. Remember those names? Voxnar's 4 eyes blinked rapidly. Their deaths were regrettable but necessary for hegemony security. Your emotional response is typical of your primitive species. John didn't react to the taunt. I'm not here to kill you. Not yet. This caught the Admiral by surprise. Then what do you want? I want you to watch what happens next. With that, John tossed a small device onto the command console. It attached itself automatically and began interfacing with the system. Screens around the room flickered to life, showing various views of the colony, and most importantly, the battlecruiser in orbit. "What are you doing?" Voxnar demanded. John didn't answer. He simply checked the countdown on his wrist. 3, 2, 1. In orbit, the Dominant suddenly lost power to its main systems. Emergency protocols activated immediately, but those failed too, one by one. Commander Drezkar bellowed orders that couldn't be carried out as his mighty vessel went dark. What the commander didn't know, what no one in the hegemony knew, was that John had spent the past 2 days deploying a constellation of tiny, stealthy drones. Each carried a payload developed during his former life, a virus specifically designed to attack hegemony ships. "Impossible," Voxnar whispered, as he watched his backup forces become helpless. "Our systems are protected by the most advanced security in the galaxy. Your security was designed to stop aliens," John replied calmly. "But I'm not alien to your systems anymore. I've been studying hegemony technology for years, finding weaknesses, creating backdoors, just in case." For the first time, fear showed clearly on Voxnar's face. "What are you planning to do with my ship?" "I'm going to take it." Before Voxnar could respond, John was moving again. He disabled the room's occupants with a neural disruptor, non-lethal but effective, and vanished. Across the colony, hegemony forces found themselves in chaos. Their weapons wouldn't fire. Their communications were dead. And moving through their ranks like a shadow was a single human, systematically disabling anyone who stood in his way. The story spread quickly among the troops. Baba Yaga had come for them. Officer Lyric, who had helped John recover his children's bodies, found herself promoted to acting security chief after her superiors were incapacitated. She ordered her remaining forces to stand down. "We cannot win this fight," she told them bluntly. "Not against him." "He's just one human," a soldier protested. Lyric's eyes were solemn. "No, he's what humans become when we push them too far." The colony's landing pad, John secured a small hegemony shuttle whose systems had been spared from the EMP. He had protected it specifically for this purpose. As colonists watched from windows and doorways, he lifted off, heading toward the stricken battlecruiser. The Dominant hung in space, a massive but powerless hulk. Its crew worked frantically to restore systems, unaware that their efforts were futile. The virus was too deeply embedded, rewriting code faster than they could repair it. When John's shuttle docked, no one could stop him. He moved through the ship methodically, using neural disruptors to subdue the crew without killing them. This wasn't about slaughter. It was about sending a message. On the bridge, Commander Drezkar waited with a primitive projectile weapon, a last resort when weapons failed. He fired as soon as John entered, the bullet grazing John's arm. "Stay back, human," the commander warned, aiming for a more vital target. John didn't slow down. The second bullet missed entirely as he closed the distance between them. 3 seconds later, Drezkar was unconscious and John stood at the main command console. He activated the ship's emergency broadcast system, the only communication function his virus had left intact. Across human space and deep into hegemony territory, on every frequency his message would be heard. "My name is John Mason. The hegemony killed my children. This is my response. Remember their names, Lily and Sam Mason. Remember what happens when you harm a human child." Back in the colony, Admiral Voxnar watched helplessly as the Dominant's weapon systems came online, controlled remotely by the human who had outmaneuvered the most powerful military force in the galaxy. "He's going to destroy us all," Voxnar whispered, but the weapons didn't target the colony. Instead, the massive cannons of the battlecruiser fired on the Admiral's own ship, still grounded on New Eden. It vanished in a blinding flash, leaving nothing but a smoking crater. Message delivered, John set course for the stars, piloting the most powerful hegemony vessel ever captured by a human. His war had only just begun. News of the captured battlecruiser spread across the galaxy like wildfire. The Hegemony Council, The supreme ruling body of the vast alien empire, called an emergency session for the first time in 300 years. The humans, long dismissed as primitive newcomers to galactic society, had suddenly become a serious concern. The dominant, now under John's control, cut a path through hegemony space. He didn't attack civilian targets or colonies. His focus was precise and devastating. Military outposts, shipyards, command centers. Each strike was followed by the same message broadcast on all frequencies. Remember Lily and Sam Mason. After each attack, John disappeared into the vastness of space, only to emerge days later at another important hegemony installation. The ship's original crew had been left at an abandoned mining station with emergency supplies and a transmitter set to activate after John was safely away. None of them could explain how a single human had taken control of their vessel. Commander Drezkar, once proud and decorated, now refused to speak at all, his confidence shattered by what he had witnessed. On New Eden, Admiral Voxnar found himself in an impossible situation. With his ship destroyed and reinforcements too, frightened to approach, he was effectively stranded. The colonists, emboldened by John's actions, now ignored hegemony orders. They went about their business as if the alien soldiers weren't there, their eyes cold whenever they passed a hegemony uniform. Officer Lyric, who had quietly taken control of the remaining hegemony forces, approached the admiral in his makeshift quarters. "Sir, a message from the council," she said, handing him a secure tablet. Voxnar read it quickly, his scales paling. "They're sending a diplomatic envoy to negotiate with him? With a terrorist? The council has designated him as a special military threat, sir. That classification hasn't been used since the Arcturus War." The admiral slammed the tablet down. "He's one human. The hegemony does not negotiate with one human." Lyric's 4 eyes regarded him steadily. "With respect, Admiral, this human has captured our most advanced warship, disabled our security systems, and attacked 17 military installations without taking a single civilian life. The council sees wisdom in negotiation." "They're sending you," Voxnar said, noticing additional details in the message. "Yes, sir. I'm to find him and deliver the council's proposal." "Why you?" Lyric hesitated, then spoke truthfully. "Because he let me live when he took his children's bodies. The council believes he might listen to me." 3 days later, Lyric's small diplomatic vessel approached the coordinates provided in a mysterious message received at hegemony headquarters. The dominant waited there, its massive form dwarfing her ship, its weapon systems tracking her. "Approach, hegemony vessel." John's voice came through her communication system. "State your purpose." "I come from the council," Lyric responded. "They wish to negotiate." A long pause followed. Then, "Dock at Bay 3. Come alone." The massive ship swallowed her small vessel. Lyric stepped out, unarmed as protocol demanded, into the empty docking bay. John waited at the far end, still wearing the same dark clothing he had worn in the colony, now marked with signs of battle. "You helped me before," he said as she approached. "Why?" "Because what happened to your children was wrong," she repeated her words from days earlier. "And because I believed you would do exactly what you have done." John studied her. "The hegemony wants its ship back." "The hegemony wants peace," Lyric corrected. "I am authorized to offer terms." Inside the ship's command center, Lyric presented the council's proposal. Full autonomy for all human colonies. Reparations for New Eden. A formal apology for the deaths of Lily and Sam Mason, with memorials to be established in their names. And most significantly, the appointment of a human, representative to the Hegemony Council itself. "Why would they offer this much?" John asked, suspicious. "Fear," Lyric answered honestly. "Not just of you, though you have certainly proven what one human can do. They fear what all humans might do if pushed too far. You've shown the galaxy that humans will not be subjugated." John walked to the viewport, looking out at the stars. "And if I refuse, if I continue, then I am to inform you that the Council has authorized the use of planet-killer weapons against human worlds." John turned, his eyes hard. "They wouldn't dare. The political fallout would be managed. The council would rather sacrifice its reputation than its power. Lyric paused. But I don't believe they want that outcome. This offer is genuine. For the first time since his children died, John felt the weight of his grief fully. His revenge had been focused, driven by cold purpose. But what had it really accomplished? His children were still gone. How many more children, human and alien, would die if this escalated further? I want to see Voxnar brought to justice, he said finally. Publicly tried for what he did. Lyric nodded. That is already part of the agreement. His actions exceeded his authority and violated our own laws. And the officer who helped him, the one who increased the neural probe power, identified and awaiting trial as well. John was silent for a long time. Then, I'll need to see this agreement formally ratified before I return the ship. The council anticipated that. They're waiting for my signal to begin an emergency ratification session, broadcast across all hegemony space. 3 days later, John Mason returned to New Eden. The hegemony forces had already departed, replaced by representatives from other human colonies who had come to offer support and witness history. Admiral Voxnar had been taken away in chains, his once proud bearing now stooped and defeated. Eric Palmer was waiting at the landing pad when John's shuttle touched down. You did it, Eric said, embracing his friend. You changed everything for all of us. John's face remained solemn. I did what I had to do. The memorial for Lily and Sam will be built in the center of the colony, Eric told him. The first official act of our new autonomous government. John nodded but said nothing more. That evening, as the twin suns of New Eden set, John returned to the simple graves where he had buried his children. He knelt between them, placing a hand on each small mound of earth. It's done, he whispered. People will remember your names, and they'll know that humans cannot be treated as lesser beings in this galaxy. A soft footstep behind him made him turn. Officer Lyric stood there, now dressed in civilian clothes. The council asked me to serve as liaison to the human colonies, she explained. I thought I should start here. Why? To understand what we almost destroyed. She looked at the graves. And to remember what happens when powerful empires forget that even the most seemingly harmless creatures will fight with unimaginable ferocity to protect their young. John stood, looking back at the colony where lights were beginning to come on as night fell. Humans and a few aliens moved about the streets freely, working together to rebuild what had been damaged. What will you do now? Lyric asked. John looked up at the stars, where the legend of Baba Yaga now traveled from world to world, a warning and a shield for humanity among the stars. Live, he said simply, and remember,